Landon sat in the corner of the VIP lounge, staring through the tinted glass as the rain rolled down the runway, like tears no one had the nerve to admit they cried. You were there too, remember? Just a few feet away, sipping burnt coffee from a porcelain cup you didn't ask for, pretending not to look while something in the air felt off, like the silence after a gunshot. It wasn't just another delay. It wasn't just another layover. This was something else. You know that feeling, when the world around you forgets to pretend, when the mask slips just enough to glimpse what no one talks about. That's exactly what happened the moment Landon leaned in and whispered 3 words to the man in the navy blue suit. The man everyone assumed was someone important because he looked important. 3 words, so quiet, so sharp, they didn't even register to the ear, but they stabbed something deeper, older, buried. You watched the man flinch, as if he'd been touched by something cold and wet and dead. He looked at Landon like he wasn't real. Then, like smoke before a breeze, the man was gone. No footsteps, no goodbyes, not a trace, just the soft echo of a laugh that didn't belong to either of them. Low, guttural, like it came from somewhere beneath the floor. Security was called, of course. They came in fast, voices raised, guns holstered but ready. But they didn't ask the right questions. They didn't question Landon. They questioned you, your name, your job, your reason for being there. Like you were the glitch, like you were the one out of place. That's when you noticed it, the silence, not the comfortable kind. The kind that's loud, heavy, no phones ringing, no boarding announcements, no airport buzz. Just the buzz of the lights and one of them flickering above Landon, as if time forgot it. You looked around. No one else seemed to see it. No one else seemed to see him. And that's when it hit. No one else was moving. Not blinking, not breathing, just frozen like mannequins between thoughts. And then came the insult. Landon turned to the head of security, who puffed his chest like every man who's afraid he's powerless. And Landon said, "You were prettier before they replaced you." Just like that. A simple sentence, but it didn't make sense. Not until the head of security collapsed to his knees like his strings had been cut, face twisting, like he was trying to remember a nightmare he wasn't supposed to wake up from. That's when the room reset. Everyone began blinking, sipping drinks, typing on phones again, as if nothing had happened. But you remembered. You're still remembering. And here's the part that won't let you sleep tonight. When you pulled out your phone to check the timestamp of the incident, proof that it all happened, it was already in your gallery, recorded, edited, captioned, and the title. The title was already typed out. Undercover boss insulted in VIP lounge. Security's reaction backfires. Only, you didn't write that. You didn't record anything. And you never hit play. But the video started anyway. And the first frame was you facing the camera, smiling, like you already knew what was going to happen next. The screen was frozen on your face, and that smile, something about it felt off, like the ghost of a laugh you never quite heard, but felt crawling under your skin. You blinked, trying to shake the fog that had settled in your mind since the video started playing itself, as if some invisible hand was puppeteering your memories. But there was nothing normal about this moment, was there? You kept reaching for the truth like a drowning man clinging to driftwood, yet every answer slipped farther away, dissolving into a mist of shadows and whispers you didn't want to hear but couldn't stop chasing. It wasn't just the video. That wasn't the end of it, but rather the beginning of a series of fractures slicing through your reality. You tried replaying the footage, slowing it down, searching for a clue, a flicker, a mistake. Anything that could explain how you appeared there, smiling like a conspirator in a game no one had taught you to play. But the video would glitch. The audio warped into a low hum like static bleeding through a cracked speaker. And sometimes, between those broken frames, there was something else. A faint voice whispering your name, or a phrase you couldn't quite catch. Something that felt like an accusation or maybe a warning. The line between what was recorded and what was imagined blurred so thin you began to wonder if it was real at all. The next morning, or maybe it was the one after, you woke up with that familiar nausea of a fading nightmare, but the room was different, or had it always been like this? Your memories felt like loose photographs scattered on a floor you couldn't see clearly. Some torn, others stained with colors that didn't belong. You could remember Landon's words, the frozen faces, the insult that shattered something. Deep inside security, but you couldn't remember how you got there. Had you been following him? Had you even been there? A strange gap swallowed the moments you should have filled with your own footsteps and heartbeat. That's when she appeared. Mara. You met her in a coffee shop 2 blocks from the airport, or at least that's where she claimed you met. She had a voice like worn leather, cracked but warm, and eyes that flickered like a candle struggling against the dark. She said she knew what you were going through, that she'd seen the same distortions, that she was the only one who remembered the things that didn't make sense. But could you trust her? Mara's stories were tangled, like she was trying to piece together a puzzle she didn't fully understand. She told you about the gaps, moments erased from memory, suppressed like dangerous secrets, and about a network that manipulated what people saw, heard, even felt. They're rewriting the truth, she whispered, voice dropping to a harsh edge, covering up what they don't want you to remember. You wanted to believe her, but every conversation with Mara left you feeling more adrift. There were contradictions in her words, half-truths that slipped out like smoke. Once she insisted a recording existed, one that showed the moment Landon vanished, but when you asked to see it, she changed the subject, eyes darting like she was hiding. Something you weren't meant to find. Was she a savior or part of the deception? Your gut screamed that she was both or neither, a broken mirror reflecting your own unraveling mind. Late at night, you'd lie awake, heart hammering, replaying conversations, questioning everything. Did Landon really whisper those words? Did the head of security really fall? Or was it a hallucination, a manifestation of a trauma too deep for you to face? The silence in your apartment grew thick, the shadows curling like fingers around your sanity. And sometimes, when the world outside was still, your phone would buzz with new videos, clips you never recorded, footage from places you never visited, all hinting at a larger, darker truth just out of reach. What they don't want you to remember wasn't just about Landon or the VIP lounge. It was about you, about what you've forgotten, about the part of yourself that might never come back. And so you ask yourself the question no one dares to say out loud. Is this all real? Or just the truth behind what no one tells you about losing your mind? Because in the end, the only certainty is doubt. And in that doubt, you're trapped, watching, waiting, listening for the next whisper that will either set you free or erase you completely. For weeks, you lived in that fragile zone between disbelief and desperation. The days blurring into restless nights spent chasing shadows that kept slipping through your fingers. Then, out of nowhere, the breakthrough came. A thread to pull that promised to unravel the entire knot. It was a name, scratched into the margin of a faded employee ledger you found buried in a dusty file cabinet behind a locked door you swore hadn't been there before. The name was familiar, uncomfortably so. Samuel Hargrove. You didn't know who he was at first, but something about the way the ink had faded, the way the letters curled like a secret whispered in the dark, made your blood run cold. Samuel Hargrove. The name was tied to an incident decades ago at the same airport, a disappearance that had never been explained, quietly buried under layers of bureaucratic silence and forgotten headlines. You dove headfirst into the archives, piecing together newspaper clippings, old witness reports, and grainy photographs. The more you uncovered, the more the pieces clicked into place. Samuel was a security officer, just like the man who fell to his knees in the lounge. He had vanished without a trace after an incident eerily similar to what you had witnessed. A whispered word, a sudden collapse, a silence so profound it seemed to swallow the world whole. The parallels were undeniable. And then the ledger entry, next to Samuel's name, a symbol you recognized from your recent visions, an intricate spiral etched in the margins that seemed to pulse with an unseen energy. This spiral had haunted your dreams, twisted into the corners of your waking hours, but you had never known where it came from until now. For the first time since this nightmare began, hope surged through you. You called Mara, breathless, sharing your findings. Her voice trembled with something like relief. That's it. That's the hidden truth. They've been hiding it for years, wiping out anyone who gets too close. You felt the weight of years lift from your shoulders, as if the fog that had clouded your mind was finally starting to clear. You were not crazy. They lied to you. You were right to question, to remember, to fight. But then the detail that unraveled everything came crashing down like a hammer striking glass. You found a grainy photograph, part of the archive, showing Samuel Hargrove standing in front of a security checkpoint. His eyes, your eyes. There was no mistaking it. The same tired gaze, the same haunted shadow lurking beneath the surface. You stared at the image, heart pounding, the room spinning slowly around you. How could that be? You had never met Samuel. Or had you? The deeper you looked, the more the faces blurred into one another, memories folding and overlapping like a fractured mirror. Then it hit you. This wasn't just about Samuel or Landon or that fateful night. This was about you. About a cycle repeating, a past bleeding into the present, dragging you through the same dark corridors of fear and silence. A memory, half remembered, twisted in the back of your mind, rose like a ghost from the depths. You were a child, small and trembling, standing at the edge of a forest with a voice calling your name. You don't remember who was with you or why you were there, only the feeling that something was watching, something ancient, something that didn't need to be named because its presence was felt in every breath you took, every shadow that stretched too long in the evening light. You remembered the chill, the way the air thickened like molasses, and how you ran, not looking back. But now that memory felt less like a fragment and more like a warning, echoing through your bones with a dread you couldn't shake. And there it was, the deeper force that had been watching all along, patient and silent, moving just beyond. Your perception like a predator cloaked in darkness. It didn't need to shout or strike. Its power was in the fear it seeded, the doubt it planted in your mind, twisting your reality until you questioned what was real and what was nightmare. It had been here, shaping the story from the start, pulling strings that even you couldn't. See? You thought you'd uncovered the mystery, found the hidden truth that would set you free. But instead, you realized you were still caught in the labyrinth, only now the walls were closing in faster, tighter. The spiral wasn't just a symbol, it was a trap, a mark you carried long before the video, before Landon's words, before Mara's warnings. It was part of your story, the real story, the one you hadn't yet dared to face. And then, as you sat there, the phone buzzed again, an alert for a new video. Your hands shook as you opened it, the screen flickering to life. The first frame was the same smile, but this time, behind you in the background, a shadow moved. Not a trick of light or a glitch, but something unmistakably watching, waiting, and it was closer than you thought. You froze. The past, the present, the memories, the fears, they all collided in that moment, forcing you to see it all anew. Every moment you thought you understood was a piece of something far larger and darker. The story you'd been living, the story you'd been telling yourself. It was time to watch it all again because nothing was what it seemed. And if you blinked, even for a second, you might miss what they don't want you to see. You're not crazy. You just haven't remembered everything yet. The quiet of your apartment had long since turned into a fragile shell around you, one that both protected and imprisoned you from the truths clawing at the edges of your mind. But it was never just you. You were never alone in this unraveling. Somewhere out there, maybe just beyond the thin veil separating perception from oblivion, others like you had begun to stir, waking up to the same unsettling fractures in their realities. You began noticing it, almost by accident. Cryptic symbols, scrawled on bathroom mirrors in steamed breath, fleeting messages hidden in the margins of digital ads, flickering frames in live streams you never subscribed to. These weren't coincidences. They were calls, whispered codes meant to reach you alone, or maybe to reach everyone who had the courage or the curse to see beyond the surface. Your phone buzzed late one night with a message so obscure you almost dismissed it. A single phrase. The spiral turns, but the eye watches still. No sender, no context, just those words bleeding dread through your veins like ice. But you recognize the symbol embedded in the text. A spiral, the same mark from the ledger, the same that had haunted your dreams and flickered behind you in the videos. This was a network, a silent congregation of fractured souls communicating in shadows, sharing pieces of the puzzle that reality tried to erase. You weren't the only one remembering, and the truth they were piecing together was far larger and darker than you dared imagine. At night, the dreams began. Not just your own, but shared visions that blurred the boundaries between your mind and others. You saw faces you didn't know but felt intimately connected to. People wandering through desolate airports, hearing whispers in empty lounges, vanishing without a trace after uttering forbidden words. These were memories, or maybe warnings, or perhaps echoes from a time that never truly ended. Each dream bore the same strange hallmarks, a subtle distortion in light, the spiral symbol etched faintly on walls, and always the feeling that you were being watched by something vast and ancient, something that existed beyond names and definitions. And just as you began to accept this, to realize that identity itself was a fragile mask, a construct vulnerable to manipulation and erasure, a new perspective emerged, a voice you hadn't anticipated. Someone observing not from the inside, but from the periphery. Their messages arrived in fragmented bursts, found footage from 20 years ago, grainy recordings the government never released, voices that didn't belong to any official record. This observer spoke not with certainty, but with the hesitant clarity of someone who had glimpsed too much and was haunted by what they could not change. They warned that memory was not a refuge, but a battleground, that the threads you clung to were already woven with lies and half-truths, designed to keep you tethered to a false narrative. What they didn't say outright, but what you felt pressing in the air, was that the force behind this, whatever it was, thrived on control, on reshaping who you were by erasing what you thought you knew. The spiral was more than a symbol. It was a mark of influence, a sigil that bound your identity to a larger, unseen design. And in this design, memories were weaponized, reality was negotiable, and the truth was a commodity traded in silence and shadows. As you sift through the fragmented clues, the whispers, and the shared visions, you begin to understand that the conspiracy isn't just around you, it's within you. The line between self and other, between what you remember and what's been implanted, starts to dissolve. The more you uncover, the more you realize that every choice, every moment of clarity, might itself be orchestrated by the very force you're fighting against. And the faces in your dreams, the messages in your mirror, the spirals pulsing in the dark, they are all part of a network watching and waiting, a secret communion of fractured selves spread thin across time and memory. You were right all along. To question what they told you, to distrust the silence, to search for what lies beneath the surface. But now the question isn't just what the truth is, it's whether you can hold on to your sense of self when everything you thought defined you is slipping away. And so you wait, caught between knowing and unknowing, between the watcher and the watched as the spiral turns once more, pulling you deeper into a mystery where the only certainty is that nothing will ever be the same again. You sit alone in the dark, the weight of all you've uncovered pressing against your chest like 1,000 hands silent and unyielding. The question that once seemed distant, the question no one dared ask, now burns inside you with unbearable intensity. Why? Not what happened, not how it came to be, but why this endless spiral, this ceaseless unraveling of memory and identity? Why does it reach into your very soul? It is a question that stretches beyond facts, beyond conspiracies or secrets kept in shadowed vaults. It is a question about the raw, unfiltered human heart, its fragility, its hunger for truth, and its terrible, beautiful capacity for pain. In this moment, the mystery turns inward. The force you have feared, The shadow lurking at the edges of your life is no longer an external enemy but a mirror reflecting your deepest fears and desires. You realize that what you have been chasing all this time isn't a hidden agenda or a grand design, but a revelation about what it means to be human when the ground beneath you is pulled away, when certainty dissolves and you are left naked with your own vulnerability. The spiral is not just a symbol of control. It is a symbol of the endless cycle of doubt and belief, loss and hope, memory and forgetting that defines us all. You remember now, with a clarity that feels like a sudden storm breaking through the fog, the confession you buried deep inside, the truth you were too scared to face. It is not just about Samuel or Landon or the shadows that have stalked you. It is about you. You who once thought yourself ordinary, yet carried within you the same fracture, the same spiral that connects all those lost souls. The moment you speak it aloud, the air in the room thickens, and for the first time you feel the fragile thread of your existence tremble under the weight of the truth. I was part of it, you whisper, voice cracking with the rawness of confession. Not just a witness, but a piece of the story they tried to erase. The words hang in the silence, a fragile bridge between despair and understanding. It is a moment of total vulnerability, a surrender that feels both terrifying and strangely freeing. You are no longer running from the darkness. You are stepping into it, ready to face whatever comes next. The choice lies before you like a chasm, vast and unknowable. To believe the truth is salvation, a key to breaking free from the spiral's endless loop, or to see it as destruction, a force that will shatter what remains of your sanity and leave you adrift in a sea of forgotten memories and stolen identity. The line between madness and clarity blurs, and you realize that either path is irreversible. There is no going back, only the raw, naked journey forward into the unknown. In that unbearable stillness, a terrifying awakening unfolds. You see now that the mystery isn't something external to be solved. It is the echo of the human condition itself, a haunting reminder that in the quest for truth, we are stripped to our core, forced to confront not just what has been hidden from us, but what we hide from ourselves. The spiral is endless because so is the search for meaning, and in that search, we are all vulnerable to losing ourselves or finding something deeper than we ever imagined. And as you sit there, heart pounding, breath shallow, the shadows around you shift once more, not with menace but with a quiet, knowing patience. The spiral turns, pulling you deeper into the mystery, but also offering a strange kind of grace, a chance to awaken fully, to see the world not as it appears, but as it trembles beneath the surface. You lean forward, the screen flickering softly in the dark, and whisper to yourself, and to the viewer who has followed you this far, the words that will linger long after the screen goes dark. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for stories you were never meant to hear. Until next time, remember, some truths don't want to be found.